Recently, one of my customer had to go through a very painful journey of API management inbound public IP changes. This public IP was whitelisted to all client application, external web application firewall services, external partner applications, and so on. This overall change of whitelisting of public IP was required at around 350 plus locations. While the best way is to use domain whitelisting, not all firewalls or devices or customers support domain based whitelisting, or some organization still work on public IP whitelisting only, and there is nothing wrong in that. Now, in these scenarios, keeping API management public IP static becomes extremely important. Hello and welcome all to my YouTube channel Azure Beyond Demos. My name is Kunal Chandratre and I'm going to show you the way of Azure API management provisioning by which you can always get the static public IP address for inbound traffic. So let us start. First, let me clarify an important thing. There are two main categories of API management pricing tier, V1 and V2, as you can see on the portal. The tier called as V2 is still in preview in multiple regions, and lot of features are yet to be supported for V2 which are already present in V1. Therefore, this video we will focus on API management V1 part only. As you are aware, when we provision API management, then we have three options for VNet integration as you can see on the portal. Out of these, when you select none and external, then only you get public IP. For internal option, public IP does not matter as it is only used for control plane outbound communication. No inbound traffic is received on API management public IP when internal mode is selected. But when you select this virtual network external or none, then you will get the public IP. Let us look at the scenarios in which inbound public IP assigned to API management will change. Point number one, when you delete the API management and recreate with the same name or different, doesn't matter, your already assigned public IP will be removed. Second point, you can cancel Azure subscription, let's say by mistake, or deliberately you cancel it, or subscription is disabled because of non-payment, or you get the warning of non-payment and then you re-enable the subscription, then public IP will change for API management. Point number three, when you change VNet integration option of API management instance, then public IP change. For example, in dev and premium tier, you have an option to change VNet integration from external to internal, internal to external, or external to none, or none to internal, and so on. Whenever this option is changed, then public IP will change. Point number four, if you move API management from one subnet to another subnet in the same VNet, then also public IP will change. And this is applicable for again dev and premium tier. Point number five, when zone redundancy is added or removed from API management, ideally you will always use zone redundancy and there won't be a good reason to actually remove it. But yeah, if you still do it, then public IP assigned to API management will change. Point number six, for premium tier SKU, you have an option to configure multi-region replication. Now let's say you already have multi-region replication configured. Now you remove it and then again try to reconfigure, then public IP will change. So many scenarios in which public IP of API management will change. So what is the solution to make my API management public IP not to change? First, always have your public IP created with static configuration only. If you plan to deploy API management in an Azure region that supports availability zone, then make sure that you create public IP always as a zone redundant public IP. Irrespective of deployment of API management with individual zones or automatic zone setting, always create your API management public IP as zone redundant public IP only. Let's look on the portal. So I am here on the public IP creation portal window. And as you can see, I have selected Central India region, which supports zone redundancy. In availability zone, make sure that you select zone redundant option tier as regional. So this public IP should be pre-created before creating your API management. Point number three, when you create API management with VNet, make sure that external is selected. Okay, so you don't have to select none. Always select external with VNet configuration. This allows you to attach public IP of your choice. If you use none option, then public IP will be automatically created and you won't be able to retain it. That auto managed public IP will be removed when you configure VNet for API management with external or internal. Therefore, always avoid creating API management with none VNet configuration. Now, if you are sure that your API management is going to always remain internal, then public IP really does not matter because it will be used only for control plane outbound communication. The public IP attached for internal configuration is never used for any inbound communication. All right, so let's look at these options on the Azure portal. So this is the public IP that I have pre-created. And now when I go to creating Azure API management, I will select this public IP. Let's go to API management creation window. On API management creation under virtual network tab, as you can see, I have selected virtual network, the type as external. I have selected my VNet and subnet, and the IP that I just showed you a few minutes back, that I have selected as a public IP for this. Now, if I say none, you can observe that public IP gets removed. If I say virtual network and internal, then I have option to select the public IP. But as I said, for internal public IP really doesn't matter, right? So it's always create your API management first with virtual network and external configuration and with your own pre-created public IP. Let's talk about some real world queries I received from my customer and many of you. I will answer them one by one. Question number one, I created an API management without VNet or by selecting option as none in virtual network. Do I have static public IP created? No, you don't. The IP created with none option is always auto managed and you don't control it. I don't think it is even possible to retain that IP by logging a support case to Microsoft support. So never use none option. If you need public IP for API management, always use external VNet mode. Question number two, I created an API management with VNet option as internal. Do I have the control on public IP created? Yes, but not required to control as I explained earlier because it will not have any inbound traffic coming onto it and used only for outbound control plane communication. However, if you want your outbound IP also to be static of your choice, then you can use pre-created public IP for internal mode also. Let me show on the portal. So here I am on create API management service window and here I select virtual network and then I select internal. Then I will select my VNet and subnet of choice. And now for internal mode, a public IP is used for outbound traffic. That also you can use the pre-created one, right? And then the same IP will be used for your outbound and it will remain static. So if you change it to external, it will ask for assigning new IP address. Once your API management is configured into external, you can again change it back to the same IP which you used for internal mode. Hope that clarifies. Question number three, if I create API management with external VNet, will I be able to add public facing API as a backend? Yes, it is supported. I don't know why this question came, but let's try it now. So this is my API management created with external VNet mode and public IPs of my choice. And now I will try to add a API backend which is available on public. So the public URL that I'm using for API is added into the description box. Let me show that publicly accessible API URL. So this is the URL I'm using. This is the API pet store 3. Okay. I'll be using this in my API management. You can also use this. This is publicly accessible URL. On my API management, I will click APIs and I will select option as open API specification. I will add the same URL that I have shown you, and I'll say create. Let's see what it does. It should accept. Yeah, so it has accepted and all the APIs got imported. So this backend URL that you see is a public facing URL. So in API management with external VNet mode, you can add an API which are publicly exposed. There is no problem in that. Let's move to the next question. Question number 4. I am creating API management with standard tiers queue and with private endpoint. Do I have control, or can I have the static inbound public IP management? I don't think it's a valid question. When you use private endpoint, then all inbound traffic should be private only. That is your intention. That's why you are going for private endpoint. With private endpoint on API management, no public traffic can be accepted on VIP of that APIM. So question itself is not valid. Okay. Question number 5. I do not need static public IP for my API management. What do I need to do? So as a best practice, you should use premium tier in production with internal VNet mode, so that your entire API management will be private and will never accept inbound traffic from internet. Few more question, part 2. So many questions you guys ask. All right. So question number 1 on this slide, I created API management with external VNet with static IP as you suggested. Now I need to convert that to internal VNet mode. Will I get static public IP for internal mode? Yes, you can. In internal mode, inbound traffic will not come on public IP of API management. Therefore, you can pre-create static public IP and use that on internal mode. Or you can use any random public IP while changing from external to internal mode. Once internal mode is fully configured, then go back to network internal setting and change the public IP back to the one which has been used during external mode. So your public IP will remain same. Hope that clarifies. Question number 2, I created API management with external VNet with static IP as you suggested. Now I need to change to non VNet mode. Will I get same IP which I had created? Honestly, I don't think why you would need to change API management from external to non VNet mode. It's a bad move, but if you still need to do it, then answer is your public IP will change and you can't attach public IP which you have created to API management configured with non VNet mode. Point number 3, I created API management with internal VNet mode and now need to move to external mode. Can I use my choice of static public IP? Yes, automatic means, sorry, point number 3, right? Yes, of course, this is what we saw while provisioning. Whenever you change VNet mode to external, you have an option to use your own public IP. Point number 4, I created zone redundant public static IP and created API management as automatic. Can I still assign this zone redundant IP to my API management in external mode? Yes, automatic means API management will be distributed across multiple zones behind the scene. So that's correct. Question number 5, can I create API management with no zones? Yes, if you are deploying to any region that do not support availability zones, then automatically your API management instance is created without zones. Example, in Central India, it will always have automatic option as Central India support availability zones. In South India region, you don't have this option for zone selection itself. Let me show you. This is API management creation window, and I have selected region as South India, and as you can see there is no option to select the zones here. So as per earlier guidance I have given you, you should be creating public IP with static configuration before creating API management, and create your API management in external mode only. Now, as soon as you create your public IP, after this, immediately configure the don't delete lock on it, so that it will never be deleted mistakenly. So even if you delete API management for some reason, your public IP will be retained and same can be reassigned when you create a new instance of API management again in the same region. And your victory will be complete, Leonidas. Okay, that was bad. All right, hope this video has given you important approach on making API management public IP static always. Thank you for listening and see you soon.